Off, right?
Yes.
So, hey everybody, you have joined another prime time edition of Latinas Chat Media. If you tried to join us on Saturday, we apologize. Blab was just not having us, so we decided to move our show to Google Hangouts so we can stop dealing with the constant technical issues. We very much like Blab, but it's not living up to the vision. The vision is amazing, but on the ground, it's not happening.
Right.
So thank you for making the time to come back with us tonight. We know it's a work night, but we have a feeling you guys like this evening stuff better. So we'll see if it might become a regular thing. And we have three topics on the agenda. Doesn't mean we won't talk about other things because that's how we do it. We might get a little Zoe Saldana in there, but on the agenda is we want to discuss the Latinas of Orange is the New Black. We will not be making any spoilers. I don't know how many of us have watched how many episodes, but even if we did, that's not how we get down. We're not trying to spoil anybody's viewing experience. We really want to focus on the actresses and the way they've been using their newfound platforms. And then we're going to move on to La Borinqueña, which is an exciting new comic book hero that is going to make her debut in October and how important and powerful that is. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Ayesha Curry because, you know, she has fallen from grace as far as the no-teps are concerned.
Yeah, that's horrible.
We're going to discuss that. She was wifey goals last week, and now it's by Ayesha. So we're going to talk about that. So let's start off with Orange is the New Black. And I myself have not watched any episodes. I have my critiques from viewing past episodes of the way Latinas are depicted. But I'll chime in later. Seary, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I did watch, I'll say a couple things. So I read the memoir, Piper Kerman's memoir. I saw the first 2 seasons, and I've watched a couple episodes of this new season, and that's been my frame. I did skip a couple seasons in the middle. Or one season, season 3. So I remember, you know, when the show first started, one of the things that I liked about the first season is that they started giving you some character backgrounds, which I thought was interesting, but then that kind of just felt flat, and everything got recentered around Piper. And I know it's her story, I get it, you know, but I thought it was a real opportunity because it was set in a prison, and you know, looking at women in prison is not something that we're doing often. I thought that was like a real opportunity to capitalize on that. What I'm getting from the Latina characters is like something very different that's happening in their worlds outside of the show versus what's happening with their world within the show. And I feel like some of the things that the actresses are doing outside of the show are really important and powerful, whereas the characters within the show are kind of muted in some ways. One of the things that I've noticed about the show is that they all, I mean, at least, and I could be wrong, there might be some episodes I haven't seen, and that's okay, but in a lot of their scenes, they're always together. It's a collective. It's like a group scene, and then we're not seeing as much like, of the individual stories come out. Their stories are kind of integrated, and on the one hand, I'm like, well, sometimes as Latinos, we are like that. You know, like I think about my family, and we kind of like mobilize as a unit wherever we go. You know, but at the same time, I just wonder within like, you know, I think one of the things that you know, Orange is the New Black has championed is like this super, super, super diverse cast in terms of ethnic diversity, age diversity, sexuality diversity, you know, but then we're not sort of seeing those stories all the time. You know, so I do want to talk a little bit about Dasha Polanco because she's someone who recently got body shamed, and so based on a beautiful white dress that she wore, and she's a beautiful woman. I've met her in person actually at the Orgullosa event a couple years ago, and it her response was really great, you know, and I also noticed that, you know, like her response to that incident was really great. You know, she's very body confident and embracing of her curves and really promoting that, you know, sort of that kind of like body image awareness and not necessarily wanting to be Hollywood skinny or anything like that. And I think that's really important for people to see. I also remember seeing some video of her on one of the morning talk shows. I want to say it was like the 105 or the 97 talk shows. And she was being like questioned by Charlemagne about her blackness, you know, and she was like really quick with her responses, yeah, and like very confident about her blackness and how she understands herself, and that, you know, how we define blackness is not limited to sort of one scope. So the kinds of conversations I think that she's having publicly are really, really interesting. And that's the kind of thing that I love to see from an actress, you know, that yes, they're artistic and they're creative and they have that aspect of themselves, but they also are speaking about the very things that we're dealing with as a community in terms of not only how we engage on social media, but just sort of like the things that are affecting us. So I bring that up as an example as to why I say that outside of the show, I see some of the women doing some great things, and I think some of you guys might like talk about Diane Guerrero and some of the other actresses. But on the show, you know, sometimes they're just relegated to like this one sort of archetype.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in and just say that you know, full disclosure, I only saw like the first 2 episodes of like the first season, and I never got into the show. Number one, to be honest with you, I find prison depressing. And honestly, I was a little upset because you know, this whole concept of like the white prisoner is kind of like a voyeur, like a dilettante in the prison system. She volunteered to go in, whereas it's, you know, it's clearly not the case for the people of color.
Right.
So this, you know, and it's almost like here we see, you know, Latinos and blacks in their natural environment, and it had a whole safari feel to it that I just I couldn't get into. And more than anything, like I said, it was depressing. And I didn't, and I don't know how much they developed it since, because again, I haven't watched any more episodes, but I didn't love the fact that there was a mother-daughter. That really bothered me.
Yeah, pair in the prison. Yep.
If you want to say almost like, you know, familial legacy, that's basically what that storyline is telling you.
Right.
And I agree with you, Seary. I think they've done amazing things outside. I think each one of these actresses has really capitalized on the opportunity. And they're doing important work, and they're saying important things. Diana Guerrero is doing a wonderful job of speaking up for immigrants. She has an incredible backstory in and of herself. Her parents got deported. She was, you know, I think she lived with relatives since the age of 14.
She's on 2 hit shows.
What's the other one?
What's the other one?
The Virgin.
Jane the Virgin.
I haven't seen her on that, but I also haven't seen that show in a while. So
She works at the hotel with Jane.
Oh, nice. Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
But you know, and that's a good point in contrast. Look at the full story development that she gets in Jane the Virgin. Look at Rodriguez's. That's the central character. Everything is through her POV. It's to me, it's completely drastic. I mean, also, you know, Jane the Virgin is fun, and Orange is the New Black is not. But again, I think I just, the whole thing didn't really strike me as particularly engaging. I found it depressing, and I didn't love the mother-daughter story really bothered me. But again, not to take away from the point that the actresses are doing wonderful stuff. And Sofia, I think you're the one that is telling us about what Selenis is doing.
Yes,
she's doing stuff too, right?
Leva, it's interesting. Okay, so and this is the reason, just so folks know, this is why we wanted to discuss Orange is the New Black. It wasn't so much to discuss the show, but I am glad that we are talking about Latina conversations in the show, and I have some opinions about that. Someone who's watched all the seasons but the current one. But what we really wanted to do was to give shine to the actresses, because these actresses, some of us, we know them or we're familiar with them before this show. For many of the actresses in the show, this is a breakthrough role for them. This show is bringing them and making them known among mainstream audiences. To a lot of us in the Latino community, we know who these actresses are. We've seen them in smaller projects and we've supported them. And what I really appreciate about them and wanted us to talk about, which we're doing, is how, you know, these actresses don't have This is their breakthrough project. And they have wasted no time using the newfound visibility that they have to talk about really substantive issues and courageous issues too. Not, some things are easy to champion and some things are not. You have Diana Guerrero, who admits that her parents were undocumented. You have Dasha Polanco, and I posted this thing, who has been very vocally pro-choice. And then you have Denis Leva, who has talked about having a transgender sister. And when Caitlyn Jenner became the face in mainstream media for just like this new visibility of transgender people, Selenis wrote a piece for the Huffington Post where she says, we also need to talk about that Caitlyn Jenner is not the norm.
Right.
For transgender people.
Exactly right.
People like my sister still can't find work. People like my sister are still at risk for tremendous violence. And we could talk about that. And she shows love and appreciation to her co-star Laverne Cox. But she says, let's not get fooled that the Caitlyn Jenner experience translates to other transgender people, especially transgender people of color. So these are not easy issues for an actor who has just become visible to their mainstream audiences to take on. So I wanted to talk about that and shout that out because we talk a lot about actresses who have much bigger platforms and cannot be bothered with issues. So this is a topic for Latinas Chat Media because we want to show these women love and we want to support them and we want to show to show them as examples that this can be done. Because it's not like this is their breakthrough role. Doesn't mean that they're established. This doesn't mean that when Orange is the New Black stops shooting, these women are going to have careers. And so they should, given their talents, but there's no guarantee, especially being women of color. So it's almost like, because I don't know how long if I'm going to have 15 minutes, I'm going to use it and speak about some meaningful shit. And I just respect and love that so much.
Also, if anything, they're working without a net. In other words, you could actually do it the opposite. You could say, because I don't know what comes next, I can't risk talking about something that's going to
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of actresses and actors do, is that they sort of, shy away from the tougher, more political conversations because they want to stay, what's the word I'm looking for? They want to stay neutral. Yeah, that's it, Linda. They want to stay neutral, and they don't want to offend people that might potentially be looking at them for other projects in the future. But what I hope for these women is that, even post Orange is the New Black, that they take these platforms and continue with them, or that they sort of build that bridge between some of these issues and the creative work, because that's where, that life experience that these women are bringing to the table is part of what could make future projects for them even more interesting and relevant and important for what we're doing. And so I think there's for me, I'm hopeful for them that their career continues. And I think you guys are right. I think there's something to be said about, using the exposure that they're getting from this breakthrough role, because they've been around. I know Selenis Leva has been around. I know some of the other girls, the other women are a little bit.
Been around for a long time.
So some of them have been around. It's just, not everybody has known about them, or maybe people are familiar with them for specific projects. But like you were saying, Sophia, now they have this more mainstream kind of exposure, and I'm just glad that they haven't let go of the things that are important to them, and that they're not afraid to talk about those things and be public with it, and and change the type of conversations that actors have. Because one of the things that I constantly see is this sort of other thing of oh, artists need to stay in their lane, and they shouldn't be talking about political issues or social issues or what have you. And I think, no, I think that's what artists have been in the past, and I think that's what, like what we need more of today.
And I also think that it's important, and I think one of the things that I think is very important is the fact that it gives people an opportunity to see that we as Latinos are addressing a lot of these mainstream issues. We kind of get pigeonholed a little bit, like what are our issues? Immigration and get out the Latino vote, right?
Right.
And then you have, Senator Nieto talking about her transgender rights, Dasha talking about body shaming, what is it, pro-choice. I mean, these are issues that we haven't really heard major Latino voices on. So I think it's audacious and bold and needed and really, honestly, to be lauded.
And that's why we're talking about them.
Yeah. And I think I want to double check and make sure, but I think Diane Guerrero published a memoir, did she not, recently, about her experience, and and that's really beautiful. Like, it's something that I want to pick up and read because, she's so young, and, well, I'm assuming she's young. Well, she is young. She's 29. She's younger than me. So, I think that I'm very curious about her story. I want to learn more about her, and something about the way that she's, handled this makes me want to learn more about her,
Linda,
and
did you have anything that you wanted to say?
No, you guys really say pretty much all of it. I mean, I don't have any. I have critiques about certain things on the show, but I don't want to bring that into this conversation.
No, I think it's time to move to that. I think do because I have critiques too, but I want to hear what you have to say. We haven't heard.
Well, not giving anything away, I was browsing through the most recent season, and I find that story-wise, and I think people have talked about this a lot, the Latinas are a confusing mix for me. I'm not even sure where they come from because dialogue-wise, I'm not
specific
sure.
Enough, you mean?
Huh?
They're not culturally specific enough?
No, doesn't seem that way. Now, I know there was a lot of emphasis on being Dominican this season. I'm not sure if, because I also remember a casting notice that went out specifically, which I found weird and offensive. It's like they were only looking for Dominican.
Yeah.
Yet, I don't understand why that would be. Why would you look for only Dominican actors for this season?
I would venture to say that Dominicans are really hot right now. And I think that might be why they kind of want to capitalize on the fact that, Dominicans are, I feel like Dominicans are really in, you know what I'm saying? So I think, and I don't know that excuses it because I also saw that casting breakdown. But it also kind of plays into it. Is there some idea about the fact that this is who Dominicans are, that they're into drug dealing, and that they become a populace in this prison culture? Like that is where it's a little not cool.
Yeah, but you know what? Can I actually just jump in really quickly? I didn't read the casting notice, so I don't know how it was phrased, and it could very well have been not the most PC. But we also kind of take them on to task all the time for not being culturally specific. And this isn't, if I'm not mistaken, this is based in Connecticut, so this would be an East Coast-based population. So
there are, and
I don't know. I mean, because so one of my understanding, and I could be wrong, so who are watching can research and correct us at one point. But my understanding is this is supposed to be a federal prison.
Right.
And as a federal prison, people come from all over. Like if I remember correctly, Seleni's character Gloria is actually, like, her storyline actually took place in Miami. Like, there's a character in Miami. So it's a Connecticut prison, but since it's federal, people come from all over. Story-wise, that's a very smart, strategic thing to do because then you can tell an array of stories. That is squandered and not done with.
Like, I find it funny that they're all the same then.
Well, but then it's interesting.
One of my critiques of past seasons was And it's funny because I was in a Facebook group with Genji Cohen, and I actually, sent her probably a filtered message that she probably never saw about this. But I told her, I don't know if it was season 1 or season 2, but I told her, there's just some things about the way you're characterizing Latinos that is really off. And the fact that these Latinas are not culturally specific, because the fact, Seary, you mentioned how they all kind of move together. I don't think that's realistic in general, and I especially think it would be realistic in prison. I think the Latinas, they would be siloed by their cultural group. The Colombians would be over here, Mexicans would be over here.
I agree.
Puerto Ricans would not fuck with the
No, I agree.
That I also think too is that it being Connecticut, and it being that most of these women would probably come from nearby states like New York, I really do believe that a lot of the Afro-Latinas would be Black identified and are more likely to hang out with the African-American women and Afro-Caribbean women than they would with Mexicans and Colombians. And so I thought that was very unrealistic.
And I think, I think for me, it could happen. I mean, these women are confined together, but they haven't developed their story enough to help us understand if these women are that diverse, which we still don't know, because it's like, how there's like the ethnically ambiguous, background in some casting breakdowns. Well, this is like sort of like the Latino ethnically ambiguous, but there's nothing to help us understand how they even became unified. And I agree. I don't know that it's realistic for all of the Latinos to just kind of congregate with each other when there's so many sort of like like in terms of different nationalities, all these other little issues that exist, right? So are we pretending that, that there hasn't been a Dominican versus Puerto Rican thing forever, that now we're all in prison, so we're happy-go-lucky and we love each other? I don't know.
But it seems like a country club. It doesn't even seem like a real prison. This is wire. What is it? The other one. It's not a real. It's almost like this fun. Prison. The girls just chill out. And if you watch they have the shows on TV where you go into the jail and you watch the prison population. They feature some characters. It's raw. Even with the girl. So, I don't know if we are supposed to give them the benefit of the doubt for creating. Because I'll be honest, when the show first came out, I love anything female centric. I mean, there were so many females, and I got to see Latinas, and I got to see Black girls, and it was really great, and I got very excited. But the thing that turned me off was this reference to eating a certain type of food that the girls sounded like they came from the East Coast, but they were talking about
the Spanish eggs. The Spanish eggs.
What?
No, I don't know what it is, but it was off. I went, wait a minute, and I got turned off.
Yeah, I think if it's the scene that I'm thinking about, it was like season 1. There was this big issue because the Latinas wanted into the kitchen, right? Because the kitchen was run by I'm forgetting her name now.
The Russian woman.
The Russian woman, yes.
Right.
And so exactly. So she was like womaning the kitchen, and the Latinas wanted in so bad, and there was some kind of like little power struggle thing, and the Latinas got in. But then what they were cooking, and you're right, because they do come up wherever they come from, they do kind of come off as like, and this might be because many of the characters are from the East, or the actresses are from the East Coast. They do come off as East Coast or Northeast Latinas, and then they were sort of talking about Spanish eggs and like with certain ingredients in them, and I'm like, wait, what? No, what is that? And I think the way that the food was described made it sound more Mexican than it would have sounded like, I don't know, huevo frito with your salchichon and your whatever else.
And there are a couple of Mexican characters there. There's one with the gothic makeup.
Yep.
And I think the girl we were just talking about.
Oh, and Diane Guerrero's Maritza.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
I know one real big problem that I had last season was, and a little time check, it's 9:25. One real big problem that I had last season was how the African, when it became that war between the African American clique under these leadership, and I love Borinqueña but versus Red and the white girls. One thing that I had a real problem with is that a lot of these characters, as part of their backstory and for several seasons, they were never depicted as having this tendency toward violence, which is very interesting because it is a prison show, and it's like I have seen a couple of other women-centered prison shows that are very straight up about the violence. They're like, this is woman's Oz, right? But kind of really soft pedals the violence, and I was all right with that, because even though it's a federal prison, I don't think it's the maximum security.
Yeah.
Right? But then in season 3, when they started to have this racialized war between these two cliques in the prison, all of a sudden characters that did not exhibit in their character and their storyline a propensity to violence got very violent, very often, out of nowhere, and even with each other, like what happened between Cindy and Priscilla. And I did not like that because it was confined to the African American women. Because Red and the white women were all kind of like very like, no, we're not going to go there. We're going to be above this. And let me tell you, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. If you're doing a prison show and cliques are going to war, there's going to be bloodshed on both sides.
Right.
Nobody, regardless of race, is going to put up her nose and say she's above it. Well, I was really upset that the black women were the ones who came out of character, because their characters this way in the previous 3 seasons. Came out of character to suddenly become violent under these influence. And meanwhile, Red and the white girls were depicted as being above it. And in the end, and then there was this really unbelievable neat tie-in where they redeemed themselves and they turned around and they changed it up. But I kind of felt it never should have gone in that way. And I kind of felt like, in the end, to ratchet up excitement and drama, they fell back on the violent, dramatic black woman stereotype. They also very, very upset, which is why I haven't rushed to watch this season. I'm going to watch it, but I didn't rush.
But I also think it's important to point out, where we talk about the reality of the Hollywood writers' room, that that's a very specific choice. Because you don't want to alienate your audience against your main protagonist, who happens to be white. So you're going to, for it to land psychologically in a way that, quote unquote, makes sense for the audience. Yeah, if you have those 3 groups of women, who's the one that the audience will be like, yeah, of course they're going to get angry. So I think that's what we have to also keep in mind. Who's writing these shows? What's their point of view, and how are they dealing with their audience? Do they even look at us, communities of color, as their audience? Or is this still done very much for a white gaze?
Right.
Yeah, Jenja Cohen has gone on record saying that what her intention was to do was to use the white character to get the show made and to get the audience in, and then take advantage of showing all these other characters. But Piper's
that hasn't happened. No.
Piper's very much the center of the show.
Absolutely. No. After watching, and I'm not going to give too much away, but even after watching the first episode, it's very clear that, and even without having seen last season, it's very clear that the central focus is still around Piper and Piper's story. And I think this is why I get upset, like frustrated with the character, because, and I think the actress is great, but the character is so privileged, is having this almost like otherworldly prison experience. And that may have been the goal, but when is she going to get there? In season 6, or in a season that's may not get renewed for? Like, it's a little bit frustrating now hearing that, and then seeing all this untapped potential, because those actresses are phenomenal, and they could probably tell really amazing stories if given that kind of time. Because you can't tell me that the women haven't experienced things, And I think, and again, she did it a little bit. They did it a little bit in the beginning when you saw the kind of backstories for a few of the characters, but then there was no more of that. Then it was all just kind of like the ins and outs, day to day of Piper's story and how everybody else is sort of like positioned around her. You know?
And I also kind of feel like that's always the deal with, with the devil that everybody makes. Oh, we're going to use a storyline to open up the doors. And, I hate to go back to the devious maze conversation, but that's always what it comes down to me. Like, every time you make this sort of like deal with the devil, that if we do this, it'll burst open the doors for everybody else. And it never happened.
Right.
Well, and then let's move on. And the last point that I wanted to make is that wouldn't it be interesting to see? It'll never happen, but I fantasize if they ever killed off Piper or let her be released. Because come on, she's a white privilege. She would have been released.
Yeah.
If she released, if the show would keep its audience.
Yeah.
If all the people who say they love the show or all the diversity, if they would still watch. But I think that we do this. I say that we all agree to watch the whole thing and that we come back to this topic at a future edition because it's 9:32 and we have two more things we wanted to broach upon. One of them, Seary, that you recommended because you're really excited about this new comic book called La Borinqueña. Especially like the fact that, you got something to show your niece. Now, just in case there's anybody who's watching who doesn't know what this is, can you
Absolutely, and I feel so bad I don't have the right windows open, so I'm going to link it in a few minutes. In honor, or I guess she was previewed for the Puerto Rican Day Parade, La Borinqueña, and she's a comic book hero. She's got a really interesting backstory where she is a lawyer and does a lot of social justice work. And, I have a 10-year-old niece who I'm sure everybody has seen her face by now on social media. And, I'm always looking for these kinds of positive images for her to see, interact with, engage with. And she's someone, thank you, Linda. She's someone who, like my niece is someone who's very much into graphic novels and comic style comic books. And so I think this will be a great way to kind of introduce her to that. And I really, really do hope that that the series lasts for her. And I'll tell you why. A couple of years ago, there was the Spider-Man series kind of shifted, and the young man who was going to be Spider-Man was Miles Morales, who was a half black, half Puerto Rican kid, and it got a little bit of steam and then just suddenly disappeared. And I'm like, what happened with that? Why didn't it develop? Why didn't we move forward? I think I know I was personally ready for Miles Morales. I don't know how many other people were, but I was just my niece is trying to get my attention right now. I was just really excited about that. I was excited about, a character that's identified as African American and Latino, or Black Latino, or Black and Puerto Rican, or that was happening. I was excited that it was a recognizable comic book character, and so my hope for La Borinqueña is that she does have a life kind of beyond this first Puerto Rican Day Parade and when the comic book premieres in the fall. I love the fact that she's immediately identified as Afro-Boricua. I think that's really, really important in terms of all the conversations that we've been having for over the last couple of years about really pushing forward and helping people understand what it means to be. You can come in. What it what it means to not be able to separate your blackness from your Latinidad. And so I'm just really excited about it. The young woman who has taken the young woman who I guess the comic is based on, Stephanie Yanes, who I connected with on Instagram recently, is also a phenomenal person and has an very identical backstory to the comic book character. So also seeing her face as the face of the sort of live action face of this character is pretty phenomenal as well. So I'm excited about it. Can I hold on one second?
One thing get out of the refrigerator and keep watching
Sorry.
I was watching the Puerto Rican Day Parade this weekend, and I got to tell you, it's only been in recent years that I even watched the Puerto Rican Day Parade because the leadership of the parade has changed, and the people who have taken it over now have really brought it back to what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about cultural pride. It's supposed to be about knowing and preserving your history, and they are happy to put coverage on issues that really matter to Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans. So that's why I now watch the parade. We even have commentators who are actually Puerto Rican. After many years, you had someone like Ernie Anastas, note cards with erroneous information, broadcasting the parade. And now you have people like David Navarro and Susie Castillo covering it. So the creator of La Borinqueña, Edgardo Miranda Rodriguez, was the people that they had speaking at the parade. And one thing he said that made me even more excited about the comic book is that he is weaving into, because she's a superhero character, and usually when we talk about superhero characters, there's an interesting origin story, there's a mythology, and she is this lawyer from Williamsburg. At one point in the story, he says, without giving too much away, he didn't give a lot away, but he did say that she does travel back to Puerto Rico, and she finds this crystal, and this crystal is about, is how she gains her powers. And he's going to talk about the Atabek. So he's going to be weaving in all this kind of Taino culture and Africa. So that's what makes it even more really exciting because, he and I really do hope that other people besides Puerto Ricans pick this thing.
Yeah.
Like mythology, I want to read a mythology that is, a mythology of a people that is not that is not European, for example. It's not Greek. It's not Roman. So that I really hope people will pick this up, whether they're Puerto Rican or not.
I was going to say that one of the things that I also really appreciated in reading the articles about the comic is also the time and the place that it's happening in. Yeah. He's tying it into the crisis in Puerto Rico, and he's making a point of saying that it's important for the Puerto Rican people to be reminded of the power they have within them. Take on this crisis and they can persevere. And I think that's also, and I think we've spoken about this before, I think it speaks to the greater issue of representation of why it matters. Why these stories and why these narratives have real life consequences. Because you never know who you're inspiring. So I think it's wonderful that he's doing it, that he's doing it with that in mind, that he's so conscious of it, and that he's not just saying, oh, I thought it'd be cool to have this superhero, but that he really is following the vein of all the other comic creators, that it's about bigger ideals. Like Superman was the American ideal, was about truth, justice, and literally the American way. And I love that somebody's doing that for a Latino culture. I think it's fantastic.
And knowing Edgardo as I do, I also love, the fact that she's a New Rican who goes to Puerto Rico. I love that he is addressing, and he intends to address the kind of that diasporic element to it. And knowing him as I do, because he's a friend, I can see him also using, like you said, Maria, using that vehicle to talk about some really substantive issues, like and the issues of the debt. And I can see him doing that, and these are really important issues. And I just love that. I think it's a way to bring Puerto Ricans together, because sometimes there's this thing about Puerto Ricans here and Puerto Ricans on the island. There's tensions about who's really Puerto Rican, or who's really Americano. Meanwhile, you're American even if you never step off the foot of the island through no choice of yours. So I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm hoping to see that there's going to be multiple layers of stories. Like there is going to be the outer story that is going to appeal and intrigue people who are outside of Puerto Rican culture. But I also think it's going to be very interesting, the internal cultural story, Puerto Rican to Puerto Ricans. Puerto Rican.
Let it go down. That's what it has.
I hope it goes.
There's another thing in the refrigerator with hot sauce. A little bowl. Get it. A little bowl. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Did you hear me talking about hot sauce? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, because it goes right back to you when you talk.
I'm so sorry. That's why like I keep trying to take
Because you're in front of the camera.
My niece, sorry. Another news. My niece loves hot sauce and hot wings, which I made yesterday. And she's like trying to heat it up and get that. And there's not enough hot sauce on it, apparently.
This made me hungry.
Yeah.
So go heat that up. Go heat that up. The hot sauce and that.
I would say also to kind of wrap it back, to bring it back to what you were saying. One of the reasons why it would be great for this to find an audience outside of the Latino community is because what an incredible way to make a very complex issue relatable beyond just the stereotypes. Because I think many Americans might feel like that's not our problem. That's something that's happening in Puerto Rico. I didn't even know they belonged to the U.S. And all of a sudden, comics and these really strong comic book storylines have a way of communicating these issues and making it relevant to an audience that maybe wouldn't have without it.
I just want to take some time to reiterate Sofia's point, which is that I also hope that that because the storyline, once it starts to weave in the current issues that are happening in Puerto Rico and some of the historical stuff, it could very much just become a like Puerto Rican center thing. But I do hope that people that are that all people can like look at it, read it, enjoy it, learn from it, and and that it doesn't become something that's just for us, that it's something that becomes for everyone. And I think that when we look at the social struggles that are happening in Venezuela, in Brazil, in in all these other countries, that hopefully folks are starting to see, like, okay, it's not just any one group that's struggling with their government or struggling with policy, that we have groups all across Latin America that are struggling within their own countries. And so I thank you, Sofia, for saying that, because I agree completely.
It's 9:42, and I'd like to move on to not only to our last topic, which is also the most recent hot topic, which is Ayesha Curry's fall from grace from the black patriarchal male ideal to, and for those who don't follow sports, as you know, we have a new NBA champions, and it went down to Game 7. Ayesha Curry, she is the wife of Steph Curry, and just last week she was wifey goals to a lot of these brothers on social media because she cooks, she holds her man down, she's and she's always at the games. But then recently, because of her discontent with the way the calls were going during the finals, she had tweeted that she felt that the calls were rigged to force the games to go to Game 7, because at Game 7, Game 7 makes money for everybody. And so after that, it was like, oh, you're a basketball wife. You're supposed to just sit there and look pretty and be quiet. And a big purveyor of this thing, and I know when Linda, we're going to hear a lot from Linda, Stephen A. Smith, who he's the one who made a point in particular to compare Ayesha Curry to Savannah James, who's LeBron James' wife, about like basically saying Savannah James' wifey goes because not only is she beautiful, but she just sits there and shuts the fuck up. She knows her lane. She knows just to sit there and be quiet and cheer for her man and not make comments about potential league politics. And I know we all have to talk about this, but we haven't heard from Linda in a while, so I'm going to get Linda take it over.
No, keep going. I'm looking for the quote so I can say it.
I'm trying to post
I thought one of the things that was interesting was the fact that he didn't make a comparison, for example, to Giselle Bündchen, who was very vocal when Tom Brady got something for something, because he's a bit of a cheater. But she had no qualms. She took to Twitter. So is there a different level of expectation for Afro-American black basketball player wives as opposed to football wives, or does Giselle get a pass, whereas Ayesha doesn't?
Mm.
You know, my
The
thing.
problem I have with Stephen A. Smith is his choice of words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a very nasty person on his show, and he chooses these words that can push buttons with people. I don't know if he's just being an a-hole or it's part of the show. It might be both.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, I'm trying to find the exact quote that really pissed me off. Oh, if that was Savannah, LeBron's wife, if that were Gloria, LeBron's mother, what would we be saying? LeBron James has a mom and has a wife, has kids, great guy, or even greater ambassador of the game of basketball, blah, 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 blah. That's not what I wanted to get to the point where he was saying some really nasty things. It was almost like he was just taking too many digs at her. It's unnecessary. And to tell her to take a seat,
Yeah.
you know, but this is what he does. He's done this before. You know, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just, she apologized.
Wow.
Yes,
I haven't even seen that.
Smith, first of all, is a Neanderthal. Stephen Smith is the one that suggested that when Ray Rice knocked out his wife Janae in the elevator, that maybe she had it coming because she had a quick lip or something like that. So this guy is an established misogynist. This is not his first time him saying, beyond sexist, misogynist. Misogynistic. The interesting thing about Ayesha Curry is the way that before she made these comments that she was kind of elevated as, again, guys were just saying on Twitter all the time, get you an Ayesha Curry. Never mind, none of them is a Steph, but they all want an Ayesha, even though ain't none of them a Steph. But, you know, and comparing Ayesha to someone like Amber Rose, why are you dealing with, get yourself an Ayesha, you shouldn't want an Amber Rose. So one thing that I do appreciate about, because Ayesha did check Stephen Smith and said, how are you doing, like, comparing
the two women, yeah.
Comparing two women, that's not cool, you're out of pocket for doing that, and I appreciate that she did that, but to complicate things, because these things are very nuanced, right? You know, there was a way that Ayesha has put herself out there as a patriarchal patty, right? But without, in fairness to her, without naming other women in particular or shaming other women who make different choices, she has kind of implied and positioned herself as superior because.
Oh, I think we lost Sophia there briefly.
Oh no. Oh wait, might have lost Lindsay.
Well, you know, I'm going to jump in, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that, you know, to me the comments are just the height of, and I'm going to massacre this word, infantilization. It's literally that, like, women, children should be seen and not heard, right? Sit there, look pretty, but don't say anything, and we most certainly don't want to hear you have an opinion, and it most certainly better not be cantankerous, right? It can't be antagonistic. It can't be anything that takes on. I mean, really, they really and truly just want her to be seen and not heard. So I think,
I also had a lot of problems with it. Like, you know, there's a certain level of misogyny that already exists in terms of just women who follow sports. You're talking about a woman who clearly follows the game, and I'm just wondering if a lot of the feedback came because she's a, you know, quote unquote basketball wife, or if it's, you know, because she's a woman commenting on a game. I know, for example, one of the critiques of sports has been that a lot of the women that they have commentating are usually like pageant winners and people who are not necessarily haven't been dedicated to the game all of their lives, you know, and so that changes how the conversation happens. And I know that there are some women who are trying to do work to really change the conversations and have more female voices in commenting. But the tweet that she wrote a million people wrote that same exact tweet because a million people are watching the same game and a million people were concerned about the calls. And, you know, how she got called out is, to me, you know, stunning almost. And again, I'm very curious. I don't know if there's a way to do this, but I'm very curious if all the men that tweeted had also been tweeting positive things about her a week earlier, or is this just like a different camp of men who came out because of her tweet? You know, and there's a couple of things that I think kind of frustrate me about the whole situation. Number one, I don't know, should Steph Curry have said anything? I really don't know.
He did.
He didn't?
He did. He addressed it. It was a joke.
Okay.
He was at a press conference and he just said something, and then he said, I might have to do something to the Wi-Fi in my house.
Oh God, that's
but it was
even
a
worse.
joke.
Okay, well, you know.
I mean, what is he gonna do?
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna like. And that's what I'm saying. Like, does he comment? Should he comment? You know, when is she gonna? Because even joking about it in that way continues to take power away from her ability to just have a commentary on something. You know, and I don't know why we're. You know, I'm struggling with the idea that you know, a woman cannot have a commentary on a game of basketball. Now, of course, she's his wife. Of course, she felt that the calls were particularly unfair against him. You know, so there's all of that stuff that's happening as well.
But doesn't it also...
It's amazing how fickle, you know, men of color are. That you could one day be the pillar of, you know, what a wife is supposed to be, and the next day,
when
you know,
when you know your place. When you know your place, they absolutely love you. The minute you use your voice, it becomes something else. To say that she should take a seat, to say that she shouldn't open her mouth again, that her husband should, you know, figure out what he's going to do with it. It's like so ridiculous. But you're also talking about sports, and in sports they get nuts. But I think she has said a lot of stuff on the web, and people attack her constantly. You can't say anything. The minute you say one thing, it's like the whole group that disagrees with you, they're going to come after you.
Attack,
It doesn't matter. You're not going to have everybody agree.
And I'm sure she's used to it. I was a little disappointed in like the one comment about, oh, why don't put women against each other. I know Sofia was talking about that. I'm like, really? That's her comeback? Come on, girl. Like, these people are dragging your name through the mud. Like, at least tell them to all, you know, STFU or something, you know, and keep commenting or troll them back. I think it's what you said, Matt says, you know. So it's like, you know, I thought she could have maybe responded even a little harsher, but, you know, but the thing is that it's still, I mean, that idea that Maria was talking about, the seen and not heard idea. And then I'm kind of, you know, and in my mind, I'm like looking around and I'm thinking, all right, what other basketball wives do I know? Do I even know the basketball wives? I have no idea who these people's wives are. And that is indicative of the fact that there is this basketball wife persona that is this seen but not heard person, and sometimes not even seen person, right? So this woman has almost no identity other than to be the trophy wife of her husband. And unless there's some kind of scandal, you know, we almost never hear from the women or about the women. I mean, I don't watch basketball very much, but Ayesha Curry is probably one of the most visible, you know, wives of a current player. I don't know about the show Basketball Wives and if those are all retirees or whatever, but she's the most visible, you know.
So there's this issue. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead. I just completely went out of my head.
Oh, sorry. Well, no. I mean, I think I was pretty much winding down.
I remembered. Sorry. No, what I was going to say is also, you know, there's this weirdness that takes place. Who knows her husband's industry more than the wife? You live and breathe it. Your entire family eats off that industry. Believe me when I tell you, she's probably better equipped to know the ins and outs and why that was a wrong call, or why she could see it in any but everybody negates her insight, and everybody's negating her power. I mean, I understand too that using that same analogy, you know, they do eat off that. So at some point, you kind of have to temper it against. Basically, it's like your husband's company. You know, how vocal are you going to be against your husband's quote unquote company? Considering that it is a revenue model, the seventh game does bring so much more money. But yeah, but the whole fact that she shouldn't have a say, who everybody knows their husband's industry. You know, you live and breathe it. He comes home, he bitches about work. You know, we know it. We understand what goes on, probably better than anyone else. But that isn't applied to her. And like I said, for me, more than anything, it was the whole scene and not her. Sit there, look at people, you know, and basically be eye candy.
And it was equally as insulting, I thought, to Savannah James. I'm like, she's not being complimented here. That's like an underhanded compliment. She's actually being dismissed almost as much as Ayesha Curry is in that statement. You know, so she's held up as a model because she understands her role and her place, and you know, to be seen and not heard. I'm like, that's no compliment.
No.
But then she also didn't respond, so I don't know. You know, like she probably doesn't even care. Her husband
It would have been nice for her to respond.
I would have loved to see that. I would have loved to see that and show that solidarity with Ayesha Curry and not like stick it to, you know, Stephen A. Smith, because it's like, who the hell are you? You know, who are you?
Hi, Sophia.
Hi. Welcome back.
I'm on my phone now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why. Who knows?
Well, I think we pretty much touched on everything we said we were going to.
It's 9:57.
If you guys that have been listening in, if you have any suggestions for topics, please let us know.
Yeah, especially if there's anything that, you know, has been, or anything in the media recently that you think that especially applies to Latinas, that'd be fantastic. We'd love to cover it, I think.
And also, if you like the Latinas chat media conversation,
can you get your? We can't hear you that well.
I was saying that. Hold on. Do I need to put in my headphones?
That's better. A little better.
See, this wasn't working before. When I had my headphones plugged into the computer, it was creating issues, and now that I'm on my phone, I need the headphones. All I was just encouraging people is that we can keep these conversations going at the Latinas Chat Media page.
Absolutely.
They don't end here.
Right.
So you should like the page and make sure you get notifications of our posts, and anything we talked about here, you're welcome to keep the conversation going. When you post a link about something and let us hear your opinion, we're all on there frequently. You'll hear from us. You know, we want to keep the conversations going in between editions.
Yeah,
so,
and share the replay also. We'll be sending out the YouTube link. So, you know, if you know somebody that would enjoy it and didn't get a chance to see it live, let's have them catch up on the replay.
All right. And so with that, we thank you for joining us tonight. And again, like the Latinas Chat Media page, follow all of us.
We need to create a sign off, like
like a little tagline.
We need theme music.
Oh, Zoe's back in the news. Zoe's back in the news. I think we're gonna. We were thinking about doing a little blip on Zoe today, but we didn't have time for it. But I think we're going to get to it in our next chat for sure.
Yeah, because Zoe's going to stay in the news because she's promoting a movie. And we have very varied and passionate opinions about whether Zoe needs to have a seat or whether this is really awesome that, you know, she has a lot to say about Nina Simone still. But maybe that'll be for next time. But until now, we will sign off. It's 9:59. We'll see you until then, we'll see you at the Latina Chat Media page on Facebook. You can also follow Latina Chat Media on Twitter. It's Latinas in Media is the handle. And use the hashtag. If you want to talk about the stuff on Twitter, use the Latinas Chat Media hashtag so we can find it and we can stay in communication with you and we can interact with you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Elia. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Viv. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Monique.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.